Hey everybody, Jeff Miller here. I am the head of GMAT and GRE instruction at Target Test Prep. I'm very excited today to talk about 7 tips to help you improve your accuracy on the GRE. Tip number 1, slow down and work carefully. This is a big one because look, we all know that the GRE is a timed exam. There's no secret in that. But you still don't have to rush through every problem you're dealing with. A lot of times I hear people rushing to the end so that they can go back and check their work. That's also not something I would recommend. What you need to do is you just need to slow down and you need to work methodically. By doing it, you're looking at each step as a little micro part to the problem, and if each micro part is done correctly, the macro or the larger part will be done accurately. This is really important because if you do rush and in the back of your mind you're always thinking, I gotta go faster, you're gonna ultimately just make mistakes. And remember, each mistake you make is gonna put you one step further away from your goal. So you need to ensure that you're working carefully and you're really thinking about each step and each problem that you're dealing with. And if you can, your accuracy will certainly improve. Tip number 2, log your mistakes. So when practicing, you are going to be doing a lot of problems, right? And when doing those problems, you're going to be making various mistakes. So you really need to make sure that you're aware of those errors. And the way to be aware is to log them. So every time you get a question wrong, you should be logging it in your error log. Were you making a mistake because you couldn't read your handwriting? Were you applying a wrong concept or principle? Were you solving for the wrong variable? The point is, by knowing your mistakes, you'll know exactly what they are. And when you know what they are, you can make fixes to improve them to ensure that you're not continuing to make the same mistakes in the future. And ultimately, this is going to make you better and more accurate on the GRE. Tip number 3, develop deep content knowledge. Yes, there are a ton of formulas and things that you'll have to be learning on the GRE, for sure. Area of a circle, combination formula, permutation formula, formulas in probability, formulas in number properties, you get the point, right? But you've got to really understand how to use and apply those formulas in a really deep way, because just surface level knowing these isn't going to be that helpful. So this goes back to doing a lot of topical learning and practice, because when you really focus on just one topic or chapter at a time, yes, you're going to learn all those concepts and those formulas, but then you're going to apply them in bulk. You're going to do them a lot, and you're going to know exactly how to use them and when to use them. And trust me, you'll be very confident when you see these problems, because you'll really have the deep knowledge of how to utilize these concepts and formulas. Tip number 4, this is a big one. You got to develop confidence, right? Just think about anything you do in life. You know, when you start your first job, on day 1, you're probably less confident than you are on day, 70, right? And when you're more confident on day 70, you're probably doing things better with less fear, right? When you first learned to drive, you were probably a little bit more timid or tepid than when you were 2 years later after you started driving. These are just a few examples, but it goes into the same mindset of GRE. You have to be confident. Because when you're not confident, you'll see a problem and you really won't attack it with ferocity, right? And by doing so, not only are you wasting time, but it's almost like you're just answering the question not to get it wrong rather than to get it right. And the problem is, you can't go through an entire GRE feeling that way. So you've got to go in feeling like you've got this, you've studied hard, and you're going to knock it out of the park. And the flip side of that is you're going to have to get rid of the fear of failure. Yes, the GRE is a very important exam for your future. I get that. But the problem is, if you're fearing failure the entire time that you're going into your GRE or while taking it, it's going to be difficult. And if any little thing goes wrong, there's a good possibility it's just going to cause a tumultuous effect where things get worse and worse and worse to the point where you just can't hit your target score. So look, know that you've worked your butt off, know that you know this stuff cold, and go in with confidence. It will make a world of difference for your accuracy and of course your GRE score. Tip number 5, improve the neatness of your handwriting and organization of your work. Now, this probably seems obvious, right? If you're organized in your work and your handwriting is neat, your accuracy will improve. Well, it is obvious, but it's easier said than done. This goes back to something we said earlier in the video about slowing down and being careful, because if you're rushing, you're going to not be neat with your handwriting. And if you're not neat with your handwriting, a Z could look like a 5, etc., etc. You get the point. You're not going to know what you're writing. Now, I know it depends on which test you're taking. The online test, you have a whiteboard or those clear sheets. And then if you're taking the in-person GRE, you have paper. So it's a little bit better with the in-person. But either way, you got to get used to practicing whatever it is you'll be using. And you need to just ensure that you're not scribbling things on a page or rushing through your calculations when you're writing them down. Just be slow and methodical. I promise you, it'll save time on the back end. So you can't worry, wow, I'm writing too slow, I'm not going to have enough time. You will, because ultimately you're going to be able to easily read what you're saying and of course follow your work. And what does that do? It leads to greater accuracy. Tip number 6, make sure you're answering the right question. This is huge for quant. How many times are you doing a word problem or some sort of algebraic problem where you have multiple variables and you solve for the first initial variable, but they want you to solve for the other variable? Well, if you do that, you'll get the problem wrong. And that really stinks, because that means you went all the way through the problem, you did everything correctly, and at the last second, you got it wrong. I mean, look, I'd rather you get the problem wrong in 10 seconds. Getting something wrong at the way end is such a time suck, and unfortunately, that could hurt you even more. So the point is, don't get so close to the finish line and let your guard down. Always make sure you're solving for the correct variable in the problem so that you get credit for that great work that you put in any given problem. And of course, if you do that, yes, you're going to see greater accuracy on your GRE. Final tip, tip number 7, pay attention to restrictive information. Again, this is a big one for quant. How many times have you seen a quantitative comparison question where it says x is greater than 0, or x is negative, or x is an integer? Now, if you don't follow that information and you go and you look at your two quantities, you will probably get the problem wrong, right? So remember, restrictive information is there because it's needed. I've never seen a GRE problem where they have restricted information in a quantitative comparison question and it hasn't been needed to get the correct answer, right? So it just means if it's there, look at it, know it's there, and use it. Because if you don't, you'll unfortunately get a lot of questions wrong that you probably shouldn't. So again, this falls under the category of, I would hate for you to do everything else right in a problem and then get it wrong because of one small detail. The flip side is, you follow the restrictive information, you use it, you look at your quantities, and chances are you'll be getting the question right, and again, improving your accuracy. So that's it for today's video. I had a blast talking about how to improve your accuracy on the GRE. If you enjoyed today's video, certainly go and subscribe to our video feed. And also, if there's other videos you want to see, I'd be more than happy to do them. Just submit a comment and we'll get to them in future weeks. And I look forward to seeing everybody soon.